First time at YoastCon. This is awesome. I'm loving it, man. The energy is insane. Before I get into it, right, I want to talk about a thing that I learned here. You have burgers in vending machines, right? And that shit is insane. So to the point where, Barry took me out, I'm sure he's here somewhere, but Barry took me out for a burger. There he is. And it was sensational. I didn't expect anything in a key box to taste so delicious, but it does. So that was great. And then I went back to my hotel room and I sat on the end of the bed and I kind of realized how delicious it was to the point where I went out and got another one just on my own. And I had a conversation with a shirtless man and we just vibed and it was great. But it was wonderful. Also, I have to write my wedding vows soon. And Kate gave me some incredible tips to make sure that I convince my future wife to actually see it through, which is great. So I was furiously taking notes. But yes, today I'm going to talk about GA4. Right, controversial as fuck, so I'll see you later. But yeah, I can't wait to get into this. So my name's Carthy. I'm an e-commerce consultant. I had an incredible intro already, so I won't spend too much time. I've got a lot of content to get through. But 17 years ago, almost 18 now, Google Analytics launched, as we know. And the relationship was a lot like this, right? We were the best of friends. You wanted landing pages? Hey, no problem. I got you, man. All right? Anything you need. You want to understand how much organic revenue you've got? Fine. 2 clicks. You've got it. It's great. Everything is perfect, easy. Data is accessible. It's cool. Fast forward to today, of course, and the situation is very different. We're now like this, right? Everyone's lost their absolute minds over the fact that GA4 is coming out. So what this image or GIF interprets is us. So we are the cat, right? And the corn in Universal Analytics. And we want to make sure that we get every last fucking morsel of this thing before it's discontinued. I would love to watch another video with someone trying to snatch this cob of corn away from this cat. It's not going to happen. But the problem is that some say GA4, I mean, we already know this, right? The audience kind of went, ooh, as soon as I got out here. It's just a bit bad. It's a bit shit. And they're absolutely right. It is. It's terrible. And I've got people backstage at Yoast going, is this guy for real? Like, did you just come out here to talk about Yoast in a bad way? Not Yoast. Yoast are great. GA4. Well, look. Let me share a story with you. I'm going to start with a story. So about 5 or so years ago now, maybe even a little bit longer, I worked with a pharmaceutical e-commerce brand, and they had a massive problem, but they didn't realize it was a massive problem at first. So what used to happen is every day, there'd be a couple of customers, 2 or 3 customers that would call, and they'd all kind of say the same thing. I'm at the checkout, put my card details in. It didn't work. I know I've got money in the account. It just didn't work. It didn't convert. What's the problem? Now, the issue is, customer services would raise the ticket, right, with the developers. This might be a pain for a lot of people in this room. Developers would try and recreate the problem that had been reported via customer service, and guess what? Vicious circle. Hours and hours were spent trying to find this problem that customers had raised. To no avail, just a huge, aggressive, horrible, time-consuming loop. Now, the situation was on the website, what happened is, whenever a customer put in an invalid card number, we had an error message that popped up on the screen. And it said error code that came from SagePay, and it was like error 7124, whatever the code was. Please call customer services on this phone number. And that's what customers did. But we know for a fact, if 3 or 4 customers a day are calling up to say, we've got a problem, there's probably 10x the amount of customers who aren't calling at all and just thinking, forget it, I'm going to go somewhere else and abandon my purchase. So I built a report back then in UA, way before GA4 was even a thing, and we're in a situation where we could understand what error message got sent to the website. We captured it, we understood it, and we realized that several thousand people a day were seeing this error message. And we realized, oh, hold on a minute. If we just change the copy in here, if we stored it in GA and we change the copy in every time it pops up, we will be in a situation where we can count it, we can understand it, and we see what's going on. So what we did, we changed the copy from error 7124 to invalid card number. Overnight, a £20,000 to £30,000 uplift in revenue because the messaging was just clearer. So it's not a bug, right? So there was no bug to find. It was a UX problem. Now, building that in UA was a pain in the ass. It was difficult. It was hard work. It was tedious. Now, this is where GA4 comes in, because it makes a lot of sense. It's a lot easier. The problem is, GA4 is terrible if you compare it directly to UA. And that's what Google have kind of promised us, and this is where they've made a massive mistake, right? They've promised GA4 to be a better, cleaner, more efficient, sound like I'm talking about a car, but this is actually a SaaS product, right, as we know. It's supposed to be better, and in many ways, it just isn't. It's not an iteration or even an evolution of UA. It's a completely new product built on new foundations, right? UA was very much built for marketers, but GA4 is built for analysts, and this is the problem. There might be a handful of people in this room who are analysts, but ultimately, we are marketers, we are developers, we are SEOs. Slightly different. So, here's the truth. In my opinion, I like to explain UA versus GA4 as this. Now, a Gusto box or a HelloFresh box is like UA. So you know exactly what you want to cook, you get it delivered, all your ingredients, all your condiments, all your seasonings and everything else delivered to you. Lots and lots of plastic, which is a damn shame, and it's absolutely extortionate, but roll with me. GA4 is like a supermarket. You can cook exactly the same meal, but you have to make a lot of choices, a lot of research, walk down the aisles and decide everything that you need to cook. Do you want it with meat, fish, vegetables? Would you want it vegan? You have all of these options available to you. And that's how I look at UA versus GA4. UA, predefined reports, nice and simple. GA4, you can cook the same thing, but there's a lot more choices to make. So if we just think about it for a minute, what have marketers typically used universal analytics for? Quite simple, really. If you break it into 4 buckets, we've got attribution, we've got traffic, we've got conversions, and we have UX, right? Where are people falling off? Where's the friction? So let's say we want to review the top landing pages in UA. It's a little something like this. This is for paid search, but same kind of process. So you click, 3 clicks, right? And then you've got your attribution. You click paid search, or whichever channel. There's your data, right? In literally less than a couple of minutes, we have the data we need. Now in GA4, it looks like this. Everyone just thinks, fuck this shit, man. And this was like 18 months ago when it was like Firebase or whatever it is. It's just hard, it's difficult. The landing page doesn't exist. It does now, but it didn't not so long ago. But then you'll need to add things to the nav and build custom navigation, and it's difficult. We just want the same report we had before. It should be nice and easy. There's a great tutorial here, by the way. But the fact that there is a tutorial telling you how to build something that we've always had is the epitome of what the heck is this, right? This one piece of content is around about 1,200 words, and to read it, it might take you a handful of minutes, fine. But to implement it, it's probably an hour of your time for something that you've had for years when it was way, way easier. So the point I'm trying to make is there's a lot more work involved to get to the same information when you're using GA4. Ouch. Makes things really difficult. As I said, GA is no longer a tool for marketers, right? But we can make it so. We can fix this. And I'm going to spend the rest of the time talking you through ways in which we can do precisely that. Well, first of all, we need to introduce GA4 to Google Data Studio. Now, I know people in here are already probably tweeting, oh, this guy's got the name wrong, it's called Looker. Like, fuck Looker, man. All right? That's a hideous name. No one calls it Looker. Thank you. It's Data Studio, and it always will be. I'm never going to believe the hype around Looker. So, let's first take a look at the gaps in GA4. Let's see what's going on. Yeah. This is painful, man. This one hurts me personally, because, of course, this is the space I'm in. There isn't any e-commerce conversion rate metric. You can build it, of course, but again, the metric doesn't exist. The standard reports are a joke. They're painful, they're difficult, they're tedious, so that makes sense. You can't create custom channel groupings. Well, actually, you kind of can, depending on if it's rolled out to your property yet. But like, this is stuff, again, that we've had for years, and it's been taken away from us. We can't have views anymore. That's gone. Remember this thing? We all used to play with this, right? Throw it in, get the data you want, extrapolate, search, export. Nah, mate, it's gone. We ain't got that no more. You can't annotate line graphs. So if you do a site launch, or maybe you've launched the Yoast SEO plugin, I want paying for that, Jono, wherever you are. So If that's happened, you'd normally be able to annotate it and see what's happening. Now you can't do that. The annotation's gone. You can do it in Data Studio, but again, you can't do it natively. Data can take up to 24 hours to update. I hope they fix this. There is nothing on this at the moment. In UA, it was obviously a heck of a lot faster. Now let's take a look at the gaps in UA, because of course that tool's not perfect either. It's slow to load reports, right? Like this. Everyone remember this bar? I reckon for years, we've probably all lost several hundred hours just waiting for this thing to load, right? This kind of Knight Rider-esque kind of control bar that's happening here. If I leave it on for 5 seconds longer, someone is going to cry, right? So let me just switch this out real quick. So you're also massively limited on the number of custom definitions you can have. Now, these are really important to be able to get custom data in there. So exporting more than 5,000 rows of data from UA is really difficult from the normal interface. Excuse me, in GA4, it's way, way easier. UTMs are annoyingly case sensitive. One good thing in GA4, it's no longer case sensitive. It's perfect. And data is heavily sampled, right? But of course, in GA4, you have sampling of some sort, but it's a lot broader, especially when you start to bring in things like BigQuery and APIs, right? User reporting is a mess in UA, and we rely on users. Now, I know GDPR, consent, cookie law, all of this stuff makes it a lot more difficult, right? Especially with the iOS stuff, which we're not going to get into now. But GA4 is miles ahead in this regard. Which brings me on to my next point. What GA4 does better than UA? Let's take a look. Multiple conversion events per user. Now, this one is minor, but also really, really important. So to give you an example, let's say someone comes to your store and they convert. They make a purchase. Or they fill out a form. Now, let's say they fill out the same form again during the session, or they purchase something else during that same session. The way UA works, it will only track the latest event that happens. So if someone's bought 2 things from you in that session, it only tracks the one, which I didn't realize was a thing until I started to jump into data. GA4 tracks all of them, which is sometimes why your data can be out in UA, for a multitude of reasons, but that's kind of one of them. Events are infinitely more powerful, and I'll come to this in a moment. There's almost limitless incentives or limitless kind of requirements that you can have when it comes to GA4 and events, which is important. It's what we need. More insightful data is captured out of the box. So in GA4, we have the ability to natively measure contact forms, video engagement, what else do we have? Scroll behavior. We have a lot more data that's tracked out of the box than we had in UA. Tracking users is way more accurate because there's a lot more parameters, which I won't get into. But user reporting is more accurate, especially if we use the user ID metric. If you're an e-com or people log into your website, you should absolutely be using this to get much more reliable attribution. Cross-domain tracking. Many of us here work on multiple websites across multiple domains. If you're on Shopify and you've got lots of different sites, I hear you, it's a pain. GA4 makes this a lot easier. Cross-domain tracking was always creating lots of problems in UA. And hopefully, you can just see a glimmer of hope as to where GA4 starts to make sense as a product. Almost. So, let's just take a look and look at some real-world examples that I've built. Now, what I will say is every single one of these examples that you're about to see are things that I've built for clients and have been successful in generating revenue. I can't share the clients. I can't really share how much. These are all bits of dummy data. But the concepts and the applications are 100% legitimate. They're real. So everyone that knows what I do, anyone that's seen me speak before, I rarely come up on stage and talk about e-commerce without talking about site search. And I'll be honest with you, it is where I make the bulk of my money, to be frank, because site search is huge when it comes to conversion, right? People that search are infinitely much more likely to purchase compared to people who don't. People who search are really saying that they want to buy. So here's a great example. This is Clark's. I'm assuming they maybe have branches here, but it's definitely a staple in the UK. They sell shoes, right? So if we take a look at this, this is how we record this event for someone searching for kids' shoes in UA. We'd have category, action, and label. Category search, action, search. A waste of a field, but that's what we do. And then label the search query. But let's take a look at this with a fresh lens. How would we do this in GA4? the search term, the number of results, which is a completely custom parameter, by the way, but we can track it in GA4, and the first result. Now, this is great because we now have context. We now understand that, yes, lots of people are searching for kids' shoes, but we also see the first item that we have and the sheer number of results. So if we bring that in line with the number of metrics, we start to see stuff like this, which for me is incredible. So if anyone can't see, because it's a little bit small, kids' shoes, 112 searches, 522 products, and that was the first item. But when we get to women's shoes and men's shoes, things get really interesting because we can see here that there's a lot of volume here, but the first item for women's shoes is a pair of pink socks. And this is legit. If you go to clarks.co.uk and you search for women's shoes, this is the first product. So it's a shame because Clarks sell shoes. Same for men's shoes. Search for that query. Same problem, pair of socks. I didn't come to Clarks to buy socks, bro. I want to buy some shoes, man. Like, that's what I should be able to see. But the great thing is about this data is that we now have it in GA4. It's accessible, it's textured almost. We have a lot more context, a lot more insight. So this is where GA4 starts to become powerful. And I've used this for clients before to transform site search, find the problems, and build a business case to change and make things better. How about this one? A bird's eye view of the stock of every single item that's ever been viewed in your store since when you implemented GA4, which for some of you might be on the 1st of July. So how about when sales of one or more items drops, we often overthink it. Like, real, we do. Clients call us, if we work in-house, other people in the business will call us and say, hey, sales of our kids' shoes dropped by 20% this month. Why? And what we do, we go into our silos, someone fires up Google Search Console, someone fires up Google Ads, someone fires up maybe Facebook Ads Manager, and we all start picking away, burning time, trying to work out what the hell's going on, right? I've been here before. So, like, how about this? In UA, if we tried to measure this, it's difficult, but we can. Category, action, and label. Product, stock check, out of stock, and then we'd see the URL. But in GA4, how about this? We build it so that actually we have the name of the item, we have the brand of the item, we have whether it's in or out of stock, and whether it's back orderable or not, if back orderable is even a word. So we throw it into context, and we have the URL of the item, the number of sessions it's had, the page views, and the stock status. So without even digging into any external data, I can see the reason why this particular product is dropped in sales is because the vast majority of people who saw this product in the time frame we were looking at, it wasn't in stock. That simple. Apply that to your entire portfolio of product, you then have a bird's eye view of everything on your store that's getting traffic from what channel and whether it's in stock or not. This stuff is powerful because then you can see where you're burning money on ads, where things aren't in stock. You can understand where you've got eyes, where you haven't got stock. If you get stock back in, sales are likely to increase. It's all important. It's fundamental stuff, but remember, we couldn't do this in UA. We can in GA4 with a little bit of work, and this is why GA4 is a lot more powerful if we get the right people building things and we think about what it is we want to measure. So this is an example I gave you, the story I told. How about capturing every single error message that is seen by a customer? So again, category, action, and label. So category, messages, action, error, I guess, and the label will be the message. Sorry, we don't accept American Express as an example. Now, if anyone here works in fast-moving consumer goods, retail where margins are razor sharp, American Express, I'll be honest, is a pain in the ass, right? It takes a long time to get the money. The fees are higher than MasterCard or Visa. It's a pain. In GA4, we could do this. Create, again, some custom event parameters. Error text, payment error. Error type, payment error, error text. Sorry, we don't accept Amex. And then the style, whether it was a pop-up or something in line on the page, however it looked. And then when we bring it into context, we can see here that when the error message was shown, we had 1,200 people who wanted to pay by American Express and couldn't. 2.4 people, so 2.4 times per user is the average, and obviously conversion rate was incredibly low. They had a card they wanted to use, we didn't accept it. You take this into your meeting, your boardroom, your client conversation, and you say, we've potentially lost 1,200 customers this month because we don't accept Amex. Incredibly powerful insight. You fix it, you now have context, you've got data, build the things, put Amex on, bring in the sales, mic drop, get a promotion, go home, buy a new house, right? But this is the thing, we do it. So, how about product recommendations? One of the things that are incredibly difficult to measure because they're so volatile and flexible, and we all kind of jump into our respective platforms, I won't mention any names, and we look and we see, okay, my platform has driven this many sales or influenced this many sales. I'll be honest with you, a lot of these recommendation platforms overly saturate performance, right? And what I mean by that is if you click a recommendation and then buy something within a 7-day window, they attribute it to that particular user, which is ridiculous. Like, just because you clicked, if I was looking at, like, I don't know, a new TV, and I happened to click a recommendation for a HDMI cable, and then I bought the TV. Without the cable, you're telling me that the recommendation system is still counting that sale. It is, and it's wrong. So how about you measure it yourself? Again, UA, it's difficult, we can do it, but it's hard. GA4, a lot more data. So where did the item appear? In this case, I'm walking boots. The recommendation that was actually clicked underneath the product, where it was located, and the position of the recommendation. Bring it into context, we have a league table of which particular recommendations are the one that are driving the most engagement. And we could take this further and throw an e-commerce conversion rate and revenue and all sorts of things. But then we have an idea, first of all, is our recommendations or are our recommendations performing? And if the answer is yes, where and how and for what products? Great influence, especially when you think about, in the world of e-commerce, one of your most important pages is your product page. It's where you drive a lot of traffic and spend a lot of money. So if your recommendations aren't great, it's costing you a bunch of cash and a bunch of customers. This will help you out. Double click too, it happens. All right, so there's just a handful, really, of things that you can do to take GA4 to the next level in e-com. So now you have a decision to make, effectively. Where are you? One, you can switch to GA4. Apparently I've got a 10 out of 10 according to this card. Switch to GA4 if you haven't already. What I will say to you is, anyone here using the auto migration, you just let Google do it? Good. Either you're a liar and you don't want to admit it because you don't want to roast you, or fine. But like, what I will say to you is, Google's answer to moving UA to GA4 is terrible. And I'll explain to you briefly why. First of all it does is map over your category, action, and label events. So it takes the limited data you have in UA and puts it into GA4, which means you can't measure e-com, you can't get the in-depth information we've spoken about here, and you're not using any of the bells and whistles and features that come with GA4. You're just basically taking bad data into a bad platform, which is worse than good data. You see where I'm going with this, right? So, option 2, switch to something else altogether, right? Which is option, you know, lots of people have done it, plausible, triple whale, whatever you decide to use. Option 3, pretend it's not your job, and just leave it for somebody else, which is happening. My recommendation here is to do this, which is to switch to something else. There's a lot of people kind of nodding, like, shit, this is actually probably going to be my job. Like, if you're in that bucket, you need to do something about it, because what's going to happen is in a month's time, hey, Mr. or Miss or Mrs. X, can you tell me what happened to performance? And it's going to be like, well, so it's difficult, right? Don't be in that position, because I can't really help you. You can play my presentation if you want, but yeah, it's going to be difficult. So option 4, in my opinion, the best, if you really want to avoid it, is to switch to something else and use GA4. And I know it sounds ridiculous because you're using 2 tools for one job, but I'll explain. Let's say you move to another third-party analytics platform, which you have to pay for. Might be cheap, $15 a month, $50 a month, whatever the cost is. It's money you haven't really got to think about. And you're with them for, say, 2 years. A number of things happen. One, the company gets bought out by somebody else. Adobe wants it, Google wants it, which has literally happened before. That's how we got analytics in the first place. Somebody else buys it, and then it turns into this enterprise. We won't talk to you for less than 6 figures a month, or 6 figures a year. That's a problem, because then you've got a 2-year gap in your analytics. Or option 2, the company goes bust, and then all your data's gone, right? So by running on GA4 and another system, if something happens to your information, your data, you make a choice to leave, you still have, worst case, a baseline of something. Whether you use it or not, that's going to help you. So that's what I recommend you do if GA4 is not something you want to go into. But on that note, here's how we make GA4 fit for marketers, right? So first of all, stop using GA4's native interface because it's frankly hideous, right? And I do GA4 builds all the time. I've lost count of how many I've done. But unless I have to, I won't use the native interface. What I will do instead is build out the dream report to the client or my reports in Google Data Studio. So if you want to emulate the landing pages report that you've always known and loved in UA, go build it. If you want that league table of e-commerce conversion rate versus acquisition channel, go and build it. If you want your top search results report, hey, go and build it. Like, that is your playground. Trying to get things to work in the native GA4 interface is a difficult one. I just wouldn't bother. It's not ready. In my opinion, it's not ready. So I want to talk to you through a great example. Real project. I've moved some stuff out because, of course, client sensitivity. But this particular client really wanted to understand and improve their user experience. Naturally, in e-commerce, it's what you want to do. Remove friction, improve e-commerce conversion rate, drive more sales. So I got to work, and I thought about, right, how can I make this work on GA4? Now, this is going to be small for everyone. You won't see it, right? But just as a summary, let's break it down real quick. So in the top left here, I have the top clicked navigation items for that site. So I know from looking at UX which particular drop-down items are great and which ones aren't used. So then we can scale back the navigation menu and make it way simple, particularly thinking that 80% of all people are from mobile. Right? So we know space has to be super efficient, but we haven't just done, this is just the top level. The table to the right tells us all of the items within the drop-down and which ones are being clicked. So of course, if it's not there, we know it's not being used. Get rid of it. Take it out, clean it up, remove it. Your navigation menu is probably one of the most, my score's gone down, I've got 5 now, one of the most valuable parts of the website. We know this. Navigation menu is really important. The problem is that if you look at Hotjar, Mouseflow, whatever heat maps tool that you want to use, if you look at a mobile heat map, you'll always see this really hot spot over the hamburger menu. And then it's kind of like, well, I know people are using a nav, but what are people using in it? This table will give you that answer. Underneath that, we have this line graph here, and this is basically telling us of every single product view that's happening on the website, how many are in stock and how many are out of stock. So if this orange kind of ready line at the bottom ever increases beyond a certain point, we know we have a massive inventory problem and we need to fix it. So this is, if you like, your lifeline of e-com. And then on the next page, what do we have here? I should know this. Right, most viewed out-of-stock items. So which particular items are people naturally looking at that is out of stock? Is that something we can influence? Is it permanently out of stock? Is it something that's temporarily out of stock? Or is it something that's out of stock that we completely made a decision to stop stocking it, and now for whatever reason, everybody wants it again? Traffic light system right there. And then underneath that, we have the first 3 items in any category that's loaded on the site. And this is really important because the first items in the category are akin to kind of like SERPs, right? When we think about SEO. You want to rank as effectively as possible. But what you also want to make sure is that the products at the top of a collection or a category are the most important. They're right, they're contextual, they're relevant, they make sense. So this is a really quick table to allow the client to understand for their most popular category or categories, which are the popular products. And if this is wrong, we need to go and fix it. All right. So then we have underneath this categories with no products in. So this is really important, right? We all do it, whether we're on Shopify, WordPress, whatever platform we're on. We all have legacy categories that need to be cleaned up. This bottom table will tell you every single category that's on the site that's ever received traffic that has no products in. So if you've got an old Black Friday category, last year's Christmas one, you've got a clearance thing, maybe something that you used to sell that you don't anymore, fix it, redirect it, preserve the UX, make it easier. Since then, revenue's increased, but also we've stopped spending money on things that we thought would fix the problem because we now have the data to tell us where the real problem is. And that's what's really important. So, what I'm really hoping is one day we have this relationship with GA4, right? That would be great. And for me, this is really heartwarming because I don't know who this kid is, but he just reminds me of me as a child, and I think it's incredible. So if we can get to GA4 like this, we're all frolicking away, running around, best of mates, that would be great. Last thing to say, I have a newsletter. I have a video talking specifically about GA4 and how to migrate ecom properly from UA to GA4 using only Google Tag Manager and no code, which is great. If you want to go check that out, please do. I am Luke Carthy. Thank you very much for attending my talk. Thank you.